Morning, everybody. Again, it's a privilege to be up here once again. Good news, I think Pastor's going to be back speaking next Sunday. No, I thank you for the opportunity to share, and you trust me to share what God has been saying, and I pray that that is the case today. So last week, I spoke on mercy and grace, and the fact that you can't really understand grace unless you have God's mercy in view. It's important that we have God's mercy in view because if we allow ourselves to fall into our natural state or the way in which we naturally are without being sanctified, there's a potential that we'll exchange God's grace for license, that it's a freedom to live our lives however we would want to live it. We'll see salvation as we've taken care of our eternity. Now I'm just going to live here however I want to live, but my eternity is secure. And that's not having in front of you the view of God's mercy. And the fact that we don't deserve life, we deserve death, but God in His mercy chose to offer us a path, a means by which we could be saved. And so you have on the one hand this tendency to abuse grace or take grace if you don't have mercy in view. The tendency is to take and abuse the grace and to live out of license. Whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do it, God is just there to bail you out when you get in too much trouble. But there's another side. There's an equally destructive side if you do not have God's mercy in view. There's another side. Some of us have a tendency to abuse grace. Others of us, it's still a false sense of humility. But if we're not careful, if we don't have God's mercy in view, which is what? His love. If we do not have His love in view, then we can be destructive in our own lives. We can either be destructive abusing grace and living as license, or we can have destructive lives in some of the deepest dark depths of your walk ever. I did not grow up in the church. I had a good friend who, when I think we were in high school, invited me to an event, and during that event, they shared the gospel, the good news. I don't remember much of the good news. I just remembered hell sounded terrible. And the thought hit me like, I'm going to be in this place forever? No. What was the out? Oh, Christ. Okay. Give me Jesus. I made that decision that night, and what I didn't realize was when I made that decision, I took a path into the deepest, darkest parts of my life that I ever thought I would ever get into. Throughout high school, here I am going to church. Throughout high school, I'm toying with the thoughts of suicide. I get into college, and I go to a Christian college, no less, and I'm with some people that I should never have been with. And I'm doing things that I never should have done. And yet, if you looked at me from the outside, oh man, there's a man of God. Really. It was the darkest period of my life, and it followed me supposedly making a decision to follow Christ. In 1998, yes, I'm that old, I was working for the airlines. And one of the perks of working for the airlines is that you can fly for free. It's called flying non-rev. If there's a seat on a plane, you can take it. And it was through college that I was working through the airlines, so I reached the end of my time with the airlines, and one of the things they offer you is ability to take one last trip. You didn't have to worry about coming back to work, but when you came back, you turned in your badge, you were done. So you could, and they didn't care. You know, you could be gone for a month. They didn't care. They wanted you to take advantage of it, and this was one of the perks of doing it. So one of my coworkers was actually from England, and I got talking with her, and I said, boy, I've always wanted, not always, but for probably about 10 years, I'd wanted to go to England and Scotland and everything. And she's like, why don't you go? You know, you have the ability. It's not like, you know, you have to worry about getting on an ocean liner or anything. You have a plane at your disposal. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to do or whatever. So she helped me just kind of roughly put together a trip. I mean, it was off the cuff, went on my own. But one of the things that you learn when you're flying non-rev is you start learning how to fly. And that is, you got to get creative. You would think if you wanted to go, let's say, from Cincinnati to Atlanta, you would take a Cincinnati to Atlanta flight. No. Sometimes you had to get creative, and that meant you had to go to Minneapolis to get to Atlanta, or, you know, Denver to get to Atlanta. You had to get really creative. You had to make sure that the flights that you were going to take had enough seats. That way, if anyone walked up, they're paying for it, so the airlines kind of tend to go with the people who are paying for it. So there was a rule of thumb if you were traveling internationally, and that is you do not hope to get on a flight that has less than 15 seats available at the time that you're going. So I'm in Scotland, and I took a train up to Inverness, and I'm walking along the River Ness, and I was hoping to see, you know, the monster, but I didn't get that far. I realized it was a longer walk than I was expecting. So I'm walking back along the River Ness, and I'm going through everything in my head. Because you see, what I didn't realize when I made my decision to be a Christian was I didn't have God's mercy in view. I didn't have a concept of God's love. I had this sense of, you're wicked, you're evil, you really deserve death and judgment, but I've made a way. Here's your way if you want to do it. And so it turned into, you know, no one is righteous. Well, you know, I have to be righteous. It's an unmerited favor, unmerited gift, grace, but I was in the process of trying to be meritorious enough to receive it. So I'm taking upon myself every weight of being God that there is. Just like I spoke last week, you know, that's the part of Galatians 5 that really hits me, is the yoke of slavery. The devil uses that. If you try to take on yourself being like God, you are pulling on yourself a yoke, but what it is it's the devil's way of enslaving you. And I was there. I was at the deepest, darkest parts of myself. And I'm walking along the River Ness, and I'm going through everything. Because you got to understand, I'm in the Inverness, which is in the northern part of Scotland. I have to now get on a train to Edinburgh. This is probably poor planning, I understand this. But I had to get on a train to Edinburgh, catch a train from Edinburgh down to London. I wasn't flying out of London, even though I flew in there, because this is non-rev. So I'm catching the train over to Paris because I'm flying out of Paris. But when I get to Paris, I have to get off the train and get to the airport and catch my flight in time. There's a lot of hurdles to get over. And I'm running through every single one of them. I'm trying to control the train timetables. I'm trying to control everything. And I'm overwhelmed with this thought. If I missed that flight the next day, I knew before I left, I checked the system, the flight the next day only had one seat available. The flight that I was supposed to be on had 16, so I was barely enough. So I'm freaking out, thinking of everything that has to go right for me to get home. And the last thing I wanted to do was be calling my parents up internationally, and remember, this is 98, so this is not going to be cheap, and say, oh, hey, by the way, I need a walk-up international ticket because I certainly don't have the money for it. So, like I said, I'm freaking out. And I'm walking on the sidewalk amongst these, like a hedgerow, and I hear a voice, and it was as if one of you were to come across me and walk up to me and start talking to me. And I recognized the voice right away. And it was, all the voice said was one question: who can take care of you? See, because all of this time, for a period of the better part of 5 years or more, I had been trying to take care of myself. I was leading myself. I had no concept. My church, they did the best that they could. They were really focused on discipleship, but they didn't understand that. I didn't understand mercy right out of the gate. I didn't understand God's love right out of the gate. All I was trying to do was trying to be perfect, and it was killing me. I was trying to take care of myself, and I was failing at it terribly. And when I heard that question, I broke immediately. Tears just poured out of me, as they're trying to do right now. And everything, you want to talk about having a burden lifted off of you. I didn't do anything. It was just a clear moment of understanding what it meant to be a follower. It means you follow, that you have a God who leads you through the Holy Spirit. He guides and leads. Your job is to shut up and listen and be obedient. I had no concept of that. I was trying to walk a perfect line instead of being guided in a perfect line. And everything changed for me. Now, did I still have difficulties? For sure, because I had all these years of trying to do it on my own, still do. But I can't express to you the amount of weight that was taken off of me in that moment, because I finally caught a glimpse of His mercy that led to grace. I deserve death. Yes, I do. But I'm so merciful because God so loves the world that He gave His Son. And that changed for me. But one of the interesting things with that is you run into difficulties either way, right? If you see grace as a license to live your life however you want to live it, or if you have difficulties understanding God's love, well, then you run into challenges when it comes time to hear the Lord and to follow. And so I want to kind of give you an example of how this takes effect, or how having God's mercy in view impacts your decision-making and understanding of things. So I want to go to Exodus 33. And I got to give some context to this. So just prior to this, you have Moses gone he's with the Lord, and he's been gone a long time, and so the Israelites are assuming that he's gone. Is he ever going to come back? And so they approach Aaron And here they were just led out of Egypt. They just crossed the Red Sea, seen God move in their midst, guide and lead them. But they've so put it down to Moses that he's not around, so they decide to make a god for themselves. And they go to Aaron, and he helps them. And they construct a golden calf. Now, the Lord knows this, obviously, and he shares this. And God is angry. He just did everything for them. He just led them out. They find themselves here, but God's still with them. His presence still goes before them, protects them, right? And here they are constructing a god to bow down and worship. So God, rightfully so, is angry. And Moses is getting an up-close and personal view of God's anger, right? God's telling him what he really would like to do. Now, in many ways, this is a test of Moses. Are you going to cast the people off? Or, do you exalt yourself? Or do you identify with the people and realize that I'm really no different? And while there is that moment of differentiation between himself having God's favor on his life and then the sins that the Israelites are doing, he ultimately steps forward and tries to offer himself as a sacrifice for the people. And the Lord basically says, I appreciate that, and let's just move ahead, but there will come a time when they're going to face the punishment for what they've done. But again, Moses has seen up front, and up close and personal, God's anger. Moses already has issues with, I can't speak, who am I? So we have someone who is struggling in his own right, not of the pride that we think of where, he's boasting, he's arrogant. He's got a bit of false humility about him in the sense that, why, God, you can't call me to these kinds of things. Who am I? Instead of, well, Lord, you said to do it, I'm going to follow. So we have a challenge, Moses is being challenged in his own right, seeing this, saying, now imagine too, if you don't have God's love and mercy in view, right? You've just seen the anger of God. Are you going to be so willing to take challenges and take steps of massive faith when you've seen this anger? No, I think you're going to be a little afraid to be out of step with the Lord, to see what, I don't want to face that wrath. So there's a sense of, holding back, reticence here. And so God says, all right, I want you to move forward. I can't go with you because I'm still steaming mad right now, but I'm going to send an angel. Now, an angel is not God. And Moses is hit with this idea, and he's like, basically, I want to know who, I want to know when you're leading. He wants to know all these details. And I can identify with this because that's exactly where I was at when I was walking along the River Ness. I'm running through all of these details. I want to know where I'm going, everything. I'm trying to figure this out. Now, he has the benefit of having God's presence or the angels being with him. But the difficulty becomes in discerning whether this is an angel moving, or is this me, or is it really God? There's a difference there, right? And so Moses is really trying to, I want to know, right? And so he comes to him and he's asking the Lord for assurance that you're going with me. I do not want to go without you. We just sang about this, right? I don't want to leave. I do not want to go anywhere unless you're going. And he's asked God to show to him his glory. And I think about that with the New Testament. When the Pharisees and the Sadducees come to Christ, they ask for a sign. They're not really asking for a sign. They're basically saying, why should I follow you? What is it about you, given you come from lowly position, what is it about you that makes it that I should follow you? Show me a sign. This is a little different, but it's along the same veins in the sense of, I want to know that I'm going to be in step with you. I want to know where you're leading and guiding. And the Lord's response here speaks powerfully to me, and I pray that it would speak powerfully to you. Again, because if we do not have God's mercy in view, his love, we can misunderstand when he's leading someplace. And it's because we're not really looking for a sign. Our issue isn't necessarily trust and unbelief. That's part of it. But look at what God says to him in verse 19. 18 it says, "Then Moses said, 'Now show me your glory.' And verse 19, 'And the Lord said, I will cause all my goodness to pass in front of you, and I will proclaim my name, the Lord, in your presence.'" So often our challenges in our life isn't necessarily it isn't merely a lack of trust or unbelief. Our question is whether God is good. And that's the heart of mercy. If we miss his mercy, if we miss his love, we can have a misunderstanding and don't see his goodness. The rich young man comes to Christ. What else must I do for eternal life? All these I've done. And Jesus says, one other thing. You must give up everything and follow me. What is the rich young man faced with in that moment? He has a pretty good life. Is following God going to be better? Is it good? Is God good? Is the path and plans he has for me good? Honestly, that's where a lot of our struggle comes down to. And if we do not have God's mercy in view at the beginning, it's only going to compound itself. We're going to see it as, I have to, let's go back in time. I have to live as a monk in a monastery in silence. Okay? Probably not, but at the same time, you're not seeing the good that is in those scenarios sometimes. It is a blessing to be in silence, to be still before the Lord, not have distractions, not have competing voices going on, but be silent before the Lord. It is amazing what you hear when you're silent. But if we look at that and don't see that as good, we'll miss out. I'm not saying that that's what the path that the Lord is leading, but if that is the way in which we see it, if we don't start off with the basis, the foundation of God being merciful and therefore loving and good, what path are we going to take? Because the one he's going to ask us to do, we're going to look at it at some point in time and feel like, no, I don't want that. I don't want that at all. Because we're taking on and looking at it man, that doesn't look good at all. That does not look blessed at all. But if we start from a foundational view of God's mercy, that to begin with, God is so loving that he took the time to make a way for you to be saved when he didn't have to. Well, he's already pretty good. But if we can keep that in view, now all of a sudden, where he might be leading us, the challenges we might be facing, we look at it wholly different, and we see the goodness and what we're going through. And that's the one thing that since 98, that I wish I had not gone down that road for the better part of 5 years, 6 years. But I'll say this, that moment, again, this isn't a license to do it, but it is amazing how God makes turn everything for good, even the darkest parts of your life. And it's all comes down to, I never had a view of his mercy in the beginning. I never understood it. I never grasped it. It was, you really deserve death. I guess I'll make a way for you. But at the end of your life, it better tally up better in your favor than against you, or it's not going to go well. That's how I saw it. That's how I understood it. That was the message I heard that day. It wasn't the good news. It had to do with God, but it wasn't the good news. I missed that part somewhere in there. I missed it. But the Lord nevertheless walked into that moment 5, 6 years later, and I began to understand it. And that's what I pray for all of us today, is that I pray that this, if you've never considered this before, that we would begin to consider. We are called in Romans to, in view of God's mercy, we have to keep God's mercy in view. Everything hinges off of having his mercy in view, because it's either going to be that God is loving and God is good, or we're going to start taking control of things and we're going to be leading ourselves down a terrible path, an absolutely terrible path. So now let me bring it back around, because this is totally true. So that happened in 98. Literally that's maybe a little longer than that now, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Out of the blue, I have, strange and tangential thoughts come into my head. And I suddenly was thinking about that day when I'm freaking out and I'm running through everything. And that moment, I'm recalling that moment, because that really was, to me, my birthday. That's when I came to truly become a follower. But you know what's interesting? Like I said, I just had this thought come to me a little over 5 years ago or so. I missed that flight. And the flight that I should not have gotten on, I got on without a problem. God so stepped into that moment that for the better part of 15 years, it didn't dawn on me that I missed the flight, that everything that I had anxiety over, I didn't have it. I was at such peace, and God worked out every detail, that it was a way in which God showed that, when you follow me, I will go before you. And when there is no way, or seems to be no way, as you are freaking yourself out over, I can make a way. And if you will truly trust me, if you will truly lean on me, you can be at rest. You can be at peace. To the point that it was 15 years later, and it finally dawned on me that I missed the very thing that I was freaking out over. And yet he made a way when there wasn't a way. Keeping in view God's mercy, everything hinges off of that. It enables us to stay on the path that when it is time to move, we'll be willing to move. Because whatever is challenging that we see in front of us, if we have God's mercy in view, it will be overshadowed by God's goodness. We hear it said all the time in messages all the time. Give thanks. Have a lifestyle of giving thanks, of praising the Lord. And I find it interesting in this verse right here, the Lord says, I will cause my goodness to pass in front of you. Have God's goodness, thankfulness. Recall as much as you can of God's goodness. Have it pass in front of you. Have that be what passes in front of you. Don't be looking for a sign, because honestly, I don't know about you, but I honestly, most of the time, know what God's asking me to do. But at the heart of my delay, at the heart of my unbelief or, lack of trust is I don't know that God is good. That's my challenge. Maybe more so than the arrogance, right? Some people have the arrogant side of the pride, where it's taking advantage of the grace as license to live however they want to live, and then, oh, God will bail me out. No, mine is more, I've struggled to have God's mercy in view for his love, and that he's good. And that colors how I see when he's asking me to do something. This is my challenge for the most time, is, are you good? Am I going to enjoy what you're asking me to do? I can't tell you the number of times I'm delaying. I'm slow to act because I'm too busy measuring it up, saying, I don't know. Ask our family about the possibility of being missionaries in India. You'll really see it. After that experience, we're so blessed with doing it. But at the same time, it is one of those where you want to see a struggle, have someone come up to us and say, I really believe the Lord is saying you guys need to move to India. And I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to need about a month to really, I'm going to need the Lord to confirm this 5 ways. So often we delay and we don't follow, not because it's a lack of trust. Well, it's a lack of trust, but not because we don't hear from the Lord. It's because we don't trust that he's good. We don't have his mercy in view. And we wouldn't even be in this church right now if it wasn't for him being so good, so merciful, and therefore so loving that he made a way. What? This would be a fool's errand if he wasn't so merciful. But because he so loves, he is the definition of love. Well, if he's the definition of love, then he must be the definition of goodness too. It's just our idea of goodness is along the lines of how the enemy has tempted us all our lives to only look as what you think would be beneficial for you, not out of and we certainly don't see good and blessing out of struggle heartache, hard work, anything like that. No, it's the easiest path. Blame someone else. Anything other than taking responsibility for yourself that's what we see as good. That isn't necessarily in that moment, that isn't necessarily what God sees as best and good. But if we keep God's mercy in view, if we have that as our foundation, we can more easily be called to difficult and challenging situations and lean upon that goodness that I don't know. I don't like how things are going right now, Lord, but I know that you're working this out for some kind of good. And it will be a blessing to me. And you will be able to bless others through me. And that's something else. We have to have that as an understanding. I preached about this before, is temptation being a Trojan horse. The deception of the enemy to cause us to act like God and to judge a situation as whether it's going to be truly good for us or anything like that. Again, that's the way in which he enslaves us. So, if we're not following the Lord, even if we think that we're going to have an impact on people, we're probably not. Because if we're going based upon what we think would be good, what would be best for us, joyful, what would bring me the most happiness, if that's our basis for determining what path we're going to go down, that's going down the path most likely that the enemy wants. So the last thing he's going to want you to do is have an impact on people that you're trying to reach. You'll probably have a negative impact on them. But if we're seeking to obey the Lord no matter how it looks, and trust and lean upon his goodness, then when he brings people along our path, we can trust that these are the people we're supposed to reach, and we're in a place in our own relationship with the Lord, viewing ourselves rightly, being humble. It's in that moment then that God can move through us, and then there actually will be the impact that God wants to have in that situation or in that person's life, because we're walking according to God's leading, not according to how we want to lead. So, I just wanted to finish with just praying, and I just want to pray over us. Because again, I know, like I said, I know that this is where I struggle. This is my difficulties. But I'm sure I'm not alone. Because especially, I think it is especially challenging for the church in America. This is the way in which the enemy fights us here. Is we are blessed beyond measure in this country, especially given history and given many nations in the world now. When you put it all together between freedoms, rights, the ability to come and worship, then you add to that material wealth, we have it really, really good in this nation. Or you have the opportunity to have it really, really good in this nation. And that greatest strength is also our most potent weakness against us. Because the Lord can come, and most likely will come, and will ask you to do something really, really challenging. That won't be comfortable, won't look enjoyable at all. But if we don't have his mercy in view, we won't do it. We have too nice of a life here, even in the worst days. We have too nice of a life here sometimes to be obedient to the Lord's plans. And I think we're in a day and in a time where the Lord is trying to work us back around to that place of relationship to him, where we truly find our hope in Christ, where we're looking forward to what he has instead of being caught up in what we already have. Because as good as the life is here, I'm leaning and banking upon the fact that heaven will be infinitely better. And we're called to put that into practice now. Well, the only way that that happens is by leaning upon the Lord, leaning upon the Holy Spirit to guide and lead us, and that no matter where he's leading us, we're willing to go. We're demonstrating our worship of the Lord that we're going to be doing for all eternity. We're demonstrating it here. Thomas needed to see a sign. He said, but Jesus said, blessed are those who don't need to see one. They trust, they believe. God has done so many good things in each of your lives that if we step back and we look at it, have those things pass in front of you, you'll have any sign that you need that God is with you, loves you, and is willing to guide and lead you in the life that he has planned for you, that he won't leave you, he won't forsake you, he will be with you every step of the way. Every single one of you, every single one of us has had God pass in front of us all his goodness. We just need to see it. We just need to recall it. Give thanks for it. Even the difficult times. I tell you what, I give thanks for that moment when I was freaking out the greatest. Because that's the moment when I saw the Lord step in the greatest as well. I mean, I can't convey to you the voice that I heard. Literally, it was as if he stood right beside me. But his voice seemed to fill the whole space. And it was the most comforting voice. And all he did was ask a question. But it hit at the heart of where I was at. And he helped bring into view, do you not see that I'm merciful? Because I'm asking you, who can take care of you? You're not doing a great job right now, are you? Well, if you can't do it, and you think you know yourself, only I can. So, Lord, I thank you. I thank you, thank you, thank you for your goodness. Lord, you have been so good to us. If nothing else, it's in Christ. If you've done nothing else for us, you've provided Jesus for us. How merciful are you? How loving are you? How good are you? That while we were sinners, we couldn't prove ourselves. We couldn't even come close. We hadn't even begun yet to even attempt to try to make ourselves good and worthy. We weren't even in that place of humility. We were in a place of arrogant pride.
And yet, even in that place, you provided a way. Thank you, Lord, for your goodness. I pray that each and every one of us, Lord, would catch anew, would have a vision of your goodness pass before our lives. If we've never had it pass before our lives, Lord, I pray that it would happen now. That we would see what Christ did on the cross from a whole new perspective. That we would catch a glimpse of your love. In Christ's devotion, utter devotion to you, and love for humanity, that he went willingly to a cross. To do everything that needed to be done to wipe our records clean and make a way that we can walk into relationship with you and be restored to that covenant with you. Man, you are good. Forgive me, forgive us for taking advantage of that grace, of that mercy. Lord, I pray for your mercy to be before us each and every day, that it would color and filter every decision that we make, how we see our lives, the world in front of us, where you're guiding and leading, that we would lean upon your goodness and know that wherever you're guiding and leading us, the plans that you already prepared in advance, they're good. They're good. Thank you, Lord.
For merciful Savior.